Hello, welcome to our show. We are Business Love with Ryan. I am Ryan. Here we focus on what it takes to make your ideas happen and the steps you can follow to make it just a little bit easier. Subscribe to our podcast to join the ongoing conversation about all things startup business related. Find even more content on our YouTube channel, Ryan's Business Class. See the link in our description of this episode. So glad to have you here. Maybe we can learn something together. Well, okay. Hello, friends. Welcome to our first ever Business Love with Ryan podcast. It is March 8th, 2020. Like I said, this is our first ever podcast episode, and I'm very excited about it. The real purpose of it is to discuss what it means to start different kinds of businesses. We really want to focus on the education, the actual steps involved, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of getting through whatever idea you might have, understanding how to initially set it up, and then the important initial steps, and then how those steps prioritize over the life cycle of the business. And it all really starts with having your own idea. So we encourage everyone listening to cherish your ideas, to respect them, to take them seriously, and to believe that your ideas are just as valid as anybody else's. Everyone has had $1 million idea in their life, and I think that we just want to be here as a support, as an entertaining but also supportive community that really helps people get stuff done. We open our first ever podcast anticipating the end of mankind, actually, due to coronavirus. The business community is definitely on its heels right now about it. Very nervous. The obvious concern is that there's going to be a drop in business around the world. Even more important, and probably more likely, actually, is a disruption of supply chains. And then a curtailment of travel and canceled meetings, conferences, festivals, concerts. It's not practical right now, and all of that is money that is just being lost. Entertainment that's not being provided. You could say on one level the consumer is saving money by not doing these things, and you could say, conferences can be held on webcam, so business can move forward. But it changes things. It changes expectations. Entire industries are now going to be affected. Hotel industries, conference halls, airlines, taxis, anything having to do with catering to the business conference community or the vacation community or the travel for any reason, really. You just don't want to be in an airplane right now. Sequestered with 200 other people who one of them is sick. By the end of the flight, all of them are sick. So Sequoia Capital, which is a leading venture capital firm in the last 50 years, storied, historic, everybody knows who they are, everyone respects them. They issued a statement yesterday about coronavirus, particularly as it relates to the businesses that are underneath their venture capital umbrella. They addressed a letter to the founders of their subsidiary companies, and they said, coronavirus is what they call a black swan event of 2020. It's going to affect everything. It's going to frame the discussion about business this year, probably next year. It'll probably be several quarters before things start to get figured out, before initial medicines start to hit the market. Before we have an idea of how it's actually going to change our life in the long term or moving forward. And they really encouraged their founders to question assumptions that they had. Do you have enough cash to get you through the next year? Let's assume that sales really fall off. Do you have enough cash to get you through the time period? You need a runway for that. And then, do your fundraising now. If you're going to raise funding for a business, if you're going to, plan some sort of capital expenditure or hire a new workforce or open a new facility, if you're going to try to get an extended line of credit or try to bulk purchase supplies. Start raising funds for that now if it's needed from investors or lenders. I think a legitimate way of framing the fundraising argument is to say bulk purchases of raw materials. In a way, it's an attempt to save money in the same way that raising money addresses the same problem or the same needs. So, you want to forecast your sales, and you have to make some hypothesis about how it's going to be affected by this these events that are happening, these sicknesses that are going around the world. You, as a business founder, need to start deciding what you think is going to happen and setting up your processes and your enterprise to withstand a downturn or maybe pivot into a more lucrative area. Later on in this podcast, this episode, we're going to talk about some industries that might really benefit from coronavirus, from the new medical social climate that we have. But before we get into that, let me give you one really good quote from Sequoia letter that came out. It said, having weathered every business downturn for nearly 50 years, we've learned an important lesson. Nobody ever regrets taking fast and decisive actions or making adjustments to changing circumstances. In downturns, revenue and cash levels always fall faster than expenses. So, your expenses are going to stay the same. So a few things might get more expensive, especially in the short term, like your food expenses. I went to the supermarket yesterday, and I found that, for instance, on cleaning supplies, there was no sales. There was almost nothing on sale, and that's because there's just a higher demand right now. In some ways, business mirrors biology. Darwin surmised those who are not the strongest or intelligent survive, but the most adaptable to change. So, you be flexible. And the prescription for this is just to be clinically realistic about what's happening. In an academic sense or in a scientific observation sense, what is happening around you? Once you identify that with a clear head, with a non-emotional mind, then you actively and decisively take action to get away from the problem. It's occurred to me in the last few weeks that wouldn't it be nice to get away from people in general? Let's go to the forest. Let's find a campsite for the next couple of months just to weather out this problem. Let's get away from people to any degree possible. In some level, it seems like it's being contained, but then it opens up in a new place, and it's like we just can't get to the bottom of it. Well, the situation at least gives us some interesting business topics to discuss, specifically what businesses will do well and how do you capitalize on a disaster if you're inclined to do so, or how do you protect yourself? I guess the first real question is what makes a business? It's going to be the overall theme of this podcast is what makes a business. What actually makes a business exist? I think of a business, is that enough to make it real? I think of a thing that I would like to do. Well, if you've watched our previous videos on YouTube, you'll know that really we define a business as either a product or service that you're selling. There is one interesting project that has arisen from this coronavirus epidemic. There is a high school student in Washington State, and his name is... for you. Avi Schiffman, I believe is his name. Yeah. His name is Avi Schiffman. He's from Washington State. He's 17. He developed a website that coordinates information about coronavirus from the world sources, World Health Organization, Centers for Disease Control, local health agencies. He coordinates all of that information, along with having a sort of a set of articles about how to handle coronavirus, what we already know. So it's, key concepts and steps you can take, and then, current information. And so pretty much it's a informational website. Pretty much they source their product, which is information, from known sources. It just sort of coordinates that information together, and it keeps people in the loop about what's actually happening, from the news and from the public centers. Now, it's easy to think, wow, this kid has it made. He has this great enterprise set up, and now he'll be able to develop his future out of having taken advantage of this experience or this series of events that we're all participating in. Now, the question I have is, does he really have a future from it? What is he doing to actually, let's say it, he's got to make money. He's got to make money from this if he wants it to be a business. It's not a business unless he's making money. And, you could say, well, it's kind of a little bit crass to make money out of a world health scare, but so what? At least the point of this podcast, at least in this community, we're not going to criticize somebody for providing the public with something that they need, and with taking a little bit of profit to grow his enterprise. So it's okay. He should make money from it. And the first idea that I had about how he can take these millions of viewers who are coming to his website to get information about what he's doing, the first idea I had was that he could be sponsored by a pharmaceuticals company. Maybe there's a pharmaceuticals company who really feels like they're on the cutting edge, or they have an idea of how to fix it, or they've have some preventative treatments that they want to endorse. Maybe it's a hand sanitizer company who just wants to promote their hand sanitizer to all of these people who obviously need it and will obviously use it. So why shouldn't he get $250,000 to promote Purell on his website with millions of viewers a day for the rest of the year? It's a good deal for both sides. Suddenly Purell becomes a more a name brand more closely associated with this epidemic. Good for the Purell company. Good for Avi Schiffman, making a certain amount of money. And it's good for the customer because, well, now they're aware of what's happening with coronavirus, and they're aware of a great product that purports itself to be able to address this problem as well. So what makes a business? Well, the business is the relationship with the customers, and the business is the value that's being offered to them to draw their focus to one place. And then finally, the business is the monetization of that attention. So more or less, he has the opportunity to sell access to his customer base. That is what his product is. It's access to an attentive customer base with a community-oriented interest. In other words, their interest revolves around one thing that the community is about. For instance, if you had a shoe community, everyone who follows that shoe community is a specific customer or a specific type of customer, potential customer. They have a specific interest. And so everybody who follows it is a distilled population. It's a honed interest group. And this is what we have here. Anyways, the name of his website is ncov2019.live. We will have a link to his website specifically in the bio of this video. So it's just one example of a way to capitalize on the situation. It's a business opportunity that didn't exist 2 months ago. And some businesses are actually having it more difficult. Some of it is more obvious. The factory that produces your raw materials closes down. So now you don't have any raw materials to produce into a finished product. So your factory closes down. And so factories stacked on factories with disrupted supply lines leaves a bunch of guys standing around with nothing to make, nothing to work on, nothing to finish. Now, there is another instance, and this company called Robinhood. And what they are is an online stock trading platform where you upload your money to them and then you can buy and sell stocks through their platform. Well, coronavirus has had a profound impact on the stock market in the last week. The stock market dropped more than 1,000 points in one day. I think that might be the biggest drop ever, or one of the, leading handful of single-day downward movements in the history of the stock market. Then, 1 or 2 days later, it bounced right back up with the highest single-day rise in stock market history. Because we're actually in an economy that is extremely robust, and nobody quite knows how to handle these problems that we're having. Nobody quite knows how to say, this is what's going to happen, or this is what to expect, or this is how to hedge our bets. And so people are buying, people are selling, people want to get in. There's money that would love to get any advantage they can in the stock market, except there is a chance that the stock market is about to be totally ruined. It's just a weird situation. But Robinhood had a big problem because they had a power outage during the time period when the stock market was rebounding. They had excessive people signing up. They had excessive people trying to trade, and they just did not have the resources to cover the problem. And so they just shut down. Nobody could buy or sell anything during one of the biggest stock market single-day rallies in history. Robinhood is subject to a lawsuit actually right now. And Robinhood is interesting because it's a privately traded company. It's not publicly traded. And you ask yourself, if they had become publicly traded sooner, maybe they would have had the resources to have a better backup system. Maybe they could have stepped up their hosting. Maybe they could have done a lot of things in order to prevent this from happening. They're probably going to have to settle quite a bit of money that could have gone towards fortifying their infrastructure sooner. Privately traded companies that are very large, billion-dollar privately traded companies, which are called unicorns. And the reason they're called unicorns is because somehow, through funding, they're still funded, but just not with that final stock market funding, which brings in a lot of money, but changes the very nature of your organization forever. They managed to grow to full size without having to take that final leap towards maturity. Joining the stock market is a big step towards becoming a mature company. And the article that I found most interesting was actually $25 billion companies you haven't heard of. So they compared the exposure or the name recognition of this company by having surveyed 4,000 people. They surveyed 4,000 people, and they saw that, for instance, Reddit had the highest name recognition of any privately held company. Then Airbnb. Then SpaceX. With 85%, 80%, 78% of people who were asked about it knew what that company was and could tell you something about what they did. Now, other companies like cable internet service providers and cable providers like Starry, for instance, was at the bottom of the list. And I'm going to include a link to this article in the bio as well, but Starry was at the bottom of the list with only 1% name recognition. They're $1 billion, privately held company, and almost nobody knows what they do. Well, what they actually do is provide cable television service to the greater Boston area. And so it's like, how could they have become a $1 billion unicorn without having developed a name recognition brand? Well, this is an instance where they probably consumed smaller companies. They had a hedge fund behind them or a large investor, and they were able to consume a bunch of smaller cable companies and become this $1 billion company by eating up all the smaller fish. And they provide a service where it's really difficult to compete with them because how many cable service providers can fit into one region and still function? Well, the answer is 1, maybe 2. It's almost like a utility. So Robinhood comes in at 29% recognition. So 39%. So 39% of the people who hear about this story, it's going to be indelibly marked because the brand has already been introduced to the mind, has already been categorized in the mind, and now this devastating news of incompetence in a year when Robinhood was planning on making an IPO. They were planning on going from being a privately held company to a publicly held company this year. So it's really a devastating time for them. Corona has really knocked them back on their heels. Will they have an IPO? I don't even know. I would suspect yes. I would say this problem is not so big unless there is some sort of class action lawsuit that comes out of this. There's already been a lawsuit. It's an attempt to be class action. They haven't pulled in enough people yet, but a lawsuit has been filed. And it really just says Robinhood was negligent. We as investors deserved the right to have access to our funds in the investment climate. I think it'll be an expensive lawsuit. I do not think it would be successful. And the reason is because in their user agreement, it says sometimes things beyond our control happen and we can do nothing about it. And that's in the user agreement. Now, the lawyers on the side of the slighted customers say that, well, some of the statements that Robinhood has made indicates that somehow maybe they did have some control and they overlooked their obligation. So we'll see what happens there. But they were a publicly traded company already. They might have been afforded additional legal protections or have access to a larger insurance policy or have even government protections that they might not otherwise have as a privately held company. So this is just about the worst possible time for them to be in this situation. So coronavirus strikes again. Okay, so now I want to talk about Brexit. Brexit is sort of a similar economic disruption. Not similar in terms of how it disrupts, but the fact that it's just profound. What's happening in England is a profound economic shift away from the European Union. And just like when you first join the European Union, there's going to be some growing pains when you become an independent country again. One thing that's been happening is that the pound, the British money, that they're essentially purely dependent on at this point, they no longer have the euro to fall back on. I suppose the banks can hold euros, but they don't have the same cushion that the European Union might have provided them up until now. That's not to say that the European Union was overly interested in cushioning England. European Union seems much more interested in cushioning its weaker members for some reason. But that's a different discussion. I just really wanted to talk about how Brexit is impacting certain companies within England. And it seems to be the biggest casualty so far from Brexit has been the tourism industry, the travel and tourism industry. It's funny how that's also one of the major casualties of coronavirus now. But one of the major companies, or possibly the most major travel company in England, which serviced mostly in Germany actually, is the Thomas Cook Company. Thomas Cook did vacation packages, vacation bundling, discount flights when you buy with, a package, luxury vacations around the world. They had Thomas Cook Signature, which is an even more luxury package bundler. And they came to the point where they were in negotiations with shareholders and proposed lenders, and they just could not come to an agreement. And it's such a strange experience, I can imagine, to be a company that's older than anybody who works there, was working fine maybe 5 years ago, successful, growing, initiating new brands. Thomas Cook had subsidiaries in Germany especially, Neckerman Ryzen, Ogre's Tours, Air Marin, Thomas Cook Signature, Booker Last Minute. They had all sorts of different services that exclusively catered to upper end markets around Europe. And then all of a sudden, they were in the hole. Brexit concerns was the primary reason. They could not find new funding as easily. Because, I mean, if Brexit happens, the company is in England, and then most of their services are provided to Germany. What's that going to do to the regulatory environment? And we already know European Union is crazy about regulations. So it's very likely that there would be perhaps even some repercussions, some fallout between the German market and the English market that's by choice. You know, maybe one side wants to punish the other. Anyways, they came to the point where they couldn't get funding. They needed 226 million euros to keep going. I'm not sure for how long, probably for some months. But they couldn't get it. And the largest company was China's Fosun Group, who's, you know, because they're from China, because of how Chinese businesses are all integrated together, obviously this Fosun Group is under pressure too from its own trade war with the United States. This Thomas Cook problem was pre-coronavirus, just by a hair. So we don't know if coronavirus was already in China. Fosun Group pulled back. They issued a statement that said, "Oh, we're so sorry. We hope to do business in the future." I mean, real generic, no specifics. And you know, but it wasn't just Brexit. It was competition from low-cost carriers. It was insurance customers. Insurance policies that were growing too fast, and insurance companies now have to repatriate all of these customers. So I guess it's legitimate for them to raise prices as well. And the UK government was unwilling to bail out Thomas Cook. I'm not exactly sure why, in light of the Brexit situation. You know, it's an unusual situation. It's not. It's not bad economics to step in a moment of true upheaval. It's bad economics to change your system, your peacetime system, your prosperity system, just to favor a different group within your economy. But you're having a Brexit, and then you have this wonderful tourism company, this story tourism company, and now it goes out of business. And it's just sad, but it's not the only one. Domestic English flight provider, leading domestic English carrier, has gone bust. Flybe. The government could not step in to save them without seeming partial, and there's other competitors within the market already. Thomas Cook was a little bit different. It was sort of such a leader. I think the government could have stepped in. Flybe, I don't know. Those planes get sold. New people are flying the same planes. It's just because the brand couldn't manage themselves. The planes still exist. They're still in the airports. They're going to be used by somebody. This is much more of a temporary problem. I understand that investors lose out, but Thomas Cook, tens of thousands of employees, painstaking agreements that have already been made, hundreds of thousands of clients around the world just left stranded, lawsuits galore once they get home. It seems like sloppy politics and sloppy economics to let Thomas Cook go out of business, but Flybe is a little bit more peel off one company's sticker and paste on another, and it's the exact same plane. So I'm not as disappointed about it. But it demonstrates what happens when your country's currency gets weak relative to the dollar. You want to make sure that you maintain the integrity of your economic base and of your currency if you're a government, or you start to see, especially service-oriented businesses, they suffer first because they have to use international money in order to buy supplies, in order to cater to an outside audience, and then suddenly, or to buy gasoline for their airplanes, and then suddenly that disparity becomes, 20%? all of a sudden your currency falls 10%, dollar goes up 10% for a different reason, and you have service businesses within your economy, which service businesses scale immeasurably compared to product businesses. You don't want to build an entire business, an entire economy around products. Services are vital, and I think they should be protected the same as perhaps, would you save Apple? Yes, because they're a fundamental for the industry. Well, Thomas Cook was just as much. I don't understand. Okay, so at this point, we wanted to do a new section that we call Business Supermodels. And it's pretty much specific business models within certain lifestyle choices, or just that people, normal people, have the ability to create with almost nothing or a few $1,000s. So practical, available, accessible business models that you can use to make your own project. I wanted to pick models that are relevant to the news that we're already talking about. And so for today, I chose, well, I was torn. I was torn between picking tourism bundling in light of the failed travel agency, or I was tempted to get into what if you could make your own skincare products, specifically hand sanitizer. I know there's other companies that already make it, but I have passed hand desanitizer racks in the store 3 or 4 times in the last week, and I have purchased every time. I know right now is a special circumstance because of coronavirus, but, you know, there's a business there. There's a business opportunity. And if you think about it, it's probably not that hard to start your own hand sanitizer company. But let's call it skincare products in general. Lotions, cleanser, toner, moisturizer, and hand sanitizer. Because it's really all the same. We're not going to talk about cosmetics. That's something a little bit different. But, you know, nutritive products that you can put on your skin or to clean your skin. And there's a section in Entrepreneur Magazine that talks about industry spotlight, so I'm going to include that. And right now I want to say what they discussed with their information, then I want to contrast it with the way that I approach it, the steps that I approach it with. So, you know, Entrepreneur Magazine, they said, you know, it's important to be transparent about ingredients. The starting point for any business is research, and that's the same thing that I say. The first step of your business is educate yourself. We'll come back to me in a second. Ask your local cosmeticians about how ingredients affect your skin. So you can go into one of these places, you know, in the shopping mall where they, you know, want to sit you down and put makeup on you, or, you know, into one of these stores like CVS or Watson's, or someplace where they have a good quality skincare aisle, and maybe if they're a specialty store or they have a specific attendant who knows about this product, you can ask them, teach me about ingredients. What does it do? What will it do to my skin if I put it on? You know, good and bad. You know, what are some good effects that I can achieve from this ingredient? What are some bad? They'll be more than glad to tell you. It's the same when you go into a fitness store and you say, what is this ingredient? What is this protein? What is this creatine? What does it do for me? The guy at the desk should know. Well, skincare is the same way. So educating yourself is the first step. Come back to that. I just want to go over what they said first. And they said, start with basic skincare products, cleansers or toners, you know, hand sanitizers. You can never have enough of it. I saw a video of a Hong Kong man who had bought vodka and aloe vera and one other thing, and he had made his own hand sanitizer from it. And I said, wow, there's a business opportunity there. He takes them outside, he starts selling them to all of his the people around him who can't buy hand sanitizer from the store. He should learn how to make his own face mask. That would be the next thing. From there you can promote your products online, particularly on social media, obviously. And your best advertising will likely be word-of-mouth referrals. Well, if you go back into our YouTube videos history into organic marketing, word of mouth is what we're trying to induce. We're trying to encourage people to talk about it. So we're using our social media to do that. We're having a brand message. We're having very clear slogans. We're having great pictures. We're having testimonials. And we're having maybe some posts that ask you to comment. What do you think? Comment on it so that other people can read it and then want to purchase. You want them to tell other people. So maybe, you give them a coupon if they bring a friend to the store or something like this. If they bring a friend to your website, if your friend says your name, then you get a free product as well or something like this. Using your social media to induce people to purchase. And then they talk about jumpstart your business, offer free skincare analysis to customers. So maybe you set up in a location and people can come and sit down and you look at their skin and you say, well, you need this oil or you need this alcohol or you need to clean yourself this way. Help people step up their game. And one interesting quote that I read in their analysis is they talk about how Chanel No. 5 cost $150 a bottle to purchase, but it cost about $1.50 a bottle to make. And so there's a huge markup on skincare products if you can capture a certain emotion with the smell, with the packaging, with how you position it in the store. Maybe you discuss products with attendants so that they know to recommend you first. Now, let's bring it back to hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer costs almost nothing to make. People don't expect to spend a lot for it. However, if you could put it in a luxury bottle and make it seem like it's some especially sanitary thing, it's especially calibrated to fight coronavirus, it has especially a certain alcohol that is believed to fight coronavirus, you might be able to get 3 times the markup for it. Suddenly it's a $6 product instead of a $1 product because it's make it medically sound, have a medical looking package so that it looks like something you buy at the pharmacy, not just at the grocery store. So now I want to go through my steps, and this is something we're going to do in every podcast section, Business Supermodels, because I truly believe that whether it's product or service, there's a basic framework that you can put into your mind that will help you address almost any business idea you have. Well, first off, you have to get it to a business idea. So you have to identify what you're selling. It's a product or a service. But beyond that, you've already identified your passion or what you would really like to participate in or a big problem that you can be passionate by solving or just something you think would be cool to do is enough reason to do it. But really, it has to come from your enthusiasm. So once you've identified that, what you like, what you're enthusiastic about. Here it's going to be hand sanitizers, sanitary products, sanitation. Let's say we want to make a luxury one so that we can charge a little bit more. There is nothing like the margins of luxury products. So we want to make a luxury hand sanitizer brand. You were going to pick certain packaging and that looks a little bit better and, put some work into the name, put some work into the logo and the branding and the smell. It doesn't have to smell like pure alcohol necessarily. Anyways, that goes into educating yourself about ingredients. The first step of any business project is educate yourself. So ingredients, places that sell it, those are your allies. Who are your customers? And do a customer analysis. What do they expect? What do they want? Well, I guarantee the thing that they want is the strongest possible product, especially for the purpose with which they're buying it, which is probably this coronavirus. So it should say on the bottle, specially calibrated to fight coronavirus. But you don't want to be responsible for people dying if it doesn't actually work. So you want to make sure it is the right ingredient. And then finally you want to educate yourself about your competitors. Purell, they make hand sanitizer. There's a lot of off brands, and then you spray it on yourself. You're like, well, that's alcohol. That's right. It's sanitizing me because it's alcohol. Kills germs because it's alcohol. Pretty simple to understand. How long does it last on your skin? Is it a gel? How long does it take to dry on your skin? One of these cosmeticians would probably know the answers to these. Probably the ingredients you most would like to use are a little bit more expensive, which is the joy of deciding that you're going to actually be the best ahead of time. We're going to make the best product. We are going to spend a little bit more to put the best ingredients in it, and then we're going to charge way more because that's what luxury is. Look at this beautiful bottle. Look at the delightful smell you get from sanitation, which is unusual. Look at the feeling you get knowing that you're using the best materials in a product that may save your life. So, beyond that, after you educate yourself, you need to establish yourself. You need to set up your social media. You need to set up your website. You need to determine what your branding is going to be, your branding message, your name, your messaging. You got to be sure that you're going to say that messaging is, fights coronavirus. We're going to kill it. You want that to be because it's current, it's right now, it addresses a big problem right now. So you want to establish your social media and you want to get everything posted so that it looks like it's consistently branded. And that gives credibility. It adds credence to your luxury branding story. So you've established yourself, you have your website especially, a place where they can purchase. You would like to get into stores. So once you have your website and your social media set up, you can start contacting stores with samples, or I would go into the store directly. You're still going to want to hand out samples. Don't ever try to promote a product to professional buyers without giving them something to take home. That just goes with the territory. But, you get them in the room somehow. You tell them, call them up and say, listen, I have a luxury product that will fight coronavirus. They'll probably listen to you. That's a sharp idea, especially right now. So then beyond that, you want to, you've educated yourself, you've established your identity, so now you want to develop your product. So you want to get some of these ingredients that the cosmeticians have told you about, or that Google has discussed with you, or that your research has shown you is important. Get the best stuff. Why not? The bargain basement products are being produced in bulk, in mass. But if anyways, this is just an example. In my example, we're using the best products. So we're going to get all the best products. We're going to mix them together. We're going to choose a package that reflects what we're trying to do, which is luxury. It's going to have a nice pump. It's going to have a nice feel. It's going to feel good in your hand. It's going to feel substantial. It's not going to crumple. It's going to feel like something I'm glad to own. I'm glad to have on my shelf for the next couple of years. I take comfort when I want sanitation. Bang. Nice quality pump. I'm glad I paid a little bit more for that months ago. And then, that reinforces your brand name. Suddenly your brand name is on this person's shelf for some months. Well, right now, they might only be a couple of weeks because people are burning through the product, but the idea is still relevant. So you've educated yourself, you've established your identity, and you've developed your product. Now it's time to market your product. Well, part of establishing your identity was marketing, reaching out to store owners with your product once you've established your brand. However, you could actually start actively engaging with customers on Twitter, actively developing your Instagram, actively developing your... Really, I think with hand sanitizer, you're looking to make individual sales, but your true goal, because even if you're making a luxury one, it's still a low-price item. It's much better to sell them in boxes of 30 units to stores than individual units out to everyone. I think both should be available. And, if you want to buy an individual unit from our website, there'll be a shipping and handling charge, so it's a little bit more profitable there. But business-to-business bulk is probably your best bet. So that's marketing yourself. You want to do your organic marketing, business to business. You want to do your direct-to-customer marketing, which is probably more paid advertising. But also you could probably organically market to customers as well. For instance, you organically market to the superintendent of a school. You contact him on LinkedIn. You draw his attention to your social media and your website. And he sees it. And he says, okay, I'm going to buy this for our school district because we want to make sure every teacher has a bottle of hand sanitizer on their desk. Give me 400 of the industrial size. Well, that's not exactly business to business because the school is an end user. And it was one person who made the decision, just like business to business. But it would have been organic marketing that brought that home to you by going out and approaching them through Twitter, or approaching them through their LinkedIn, or approaching them through their email, specifically with, I mean to talk to you. I, Ryan, wish to talk to you, Mrs. Adams, Superintendent of School District 1, about my products. So I've purposely reached out. I've purposely written this email with her name at the top and my name at the bottom, and district-specific information to demonstrate that I wrote this specifically for her. And it's true, you're probably going to have to do this for everyone. Maybe eventually you'll develop it into a form letter with a few details that you know specifically where they are, so you can change them for District 2, District 3, District 4. But the fine points will probably stay the same. We want you to look at our product. We think we're the best. We are proven to fight corona. We have done tests. Here's a link to where our testing can be read. If you really want to fight this, don't put your eggs in the basket of a pre-coronavirus product. Put it in the basket of a post-coronavirus product that has been developed with the sense that we're going to fight coronavirus, not we're going to fight the common flu. So that's an example of how you would market your product. Direct marketing. It's an example of your messaging that you could use. Beyond that, beyond marketing your product, then it becomes product delivery. So are you going to be sold in stores, or are you going to be sold online? Are you going to be sold online in bulk? Are you only accepting orders of 100 units or more? Are you shipping bulk orders directly and individual orders directly? Are you shipping huge bulk orders to stores? Are you shipping moderate-sized bulk orders to, for instance, school districts or doctor's offices or office buildings of various sorts? I don't know of a single office that doesn't have hand sanitizer all over the place right now. Product delivery. And you want to make sure it's on time. Of course, it doesn't matter what product you have. Timeliness really is a big factor. Especially with professional buyers. So then, finally, it becomes about customer satisfaction. So you want to constantly be making sure that your product does what it's supposed to do. If you have a whole office building of people using your safety sanitation stuff and an outbreak still happens in the office, well, it's probably not your fault. Specifically, I mean, there's only so much you can do, but it would look better if the angel of death passed over offices where your products were prominently placed. I gotta believe somebody's going to talk about it. Yeah, we didn't get it. We've been using this new sanitizer. Smells a little bit better too. Luxury. So that's just a way of differentiating yourself, addressing a problem, and then, backing up your brand mission with follow-up. Hey, how have you liked our products? Well, I really liked your products. No one in our office got sick. Oh, that's great. Would you tell some of your colleagues for us? Oh, sure, no problem. Of course. People want to help you and you help them. And if you help them not get sick, then you're in business. So that's the sections. Educate yourself, establish yourself, develop your product, market your product, deliver your product, and then customer follow-up. That's 6 steps. Relevant to every business. I hope it helps you think about this one. Maybe you'll go out and buy some vodka and aloe vera and mix up your own hand sanitizer. This time next year, you're a millionaire. I don't know. Well, one last section I wanted to cover for our first podcast is a section which I want to call Profiles in Success, or something like this. It's I just want to talk about successful people who have done things in a way that I think is consistent with the way that I would like to teach, with the way that I would like the people in our community to think about doing things, at least our students. Because, we're really trying to teach, proper steps. And I think, well, the guy I want to focus on today is named Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie was one of the first self-improvement gurus. And I guess you could say, in some sense, anybody who does what I'm doing now is involved in education of young people for more than just STEM field or academic field, but actually practical knowledge about the way people work and the way life works and the way to actually be what you want to be. The first guy to really do it, at least on a pop culture scale, was Dale Carnegie. And he did it, of course, by writing the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, which has been a hugely influential book on many of the great leaders around the world. Up until the time when he had written the book, there was not a lot of practical information about how to do the most valuable skill that there is in the world, which is getting other people to do what you want them to do, making friends, building allies, building coalitions, and moving forward in life with other people allowing you to move forward in life. And, he lived 100 years ago. He's credited with pioneering practical people skills coursework. So what Tony Robbins does, what Gary Vee does, what all of these self-help guys on the internet do now was first done by Dale Carnegie. And he did it with a mission. He did it from at first he said, well, what can I be? He tried to be all kinds of things. But he realized what he was really good at was debating. And then from there, he wanted to teach public speaking. And then from there, it became about how do you get people, especially in business and politics, to be what you want them to be. So it went from making friends and being successful in your office just to being a leader of men. What does that mean? What does that take? And what we're trying to do here in this podcast is we're trying to we're also trying to show what it takes, only in a much more concrete way. I'm not here to teach you the nuanced secrets of how people will like you or not. I'm not here to teach you how to make girls like boys or how to make boys like girls. I'm here to talk about how to put food on the plate, to participate in the world of money changing hands, of dreams taking place. Because if you have a dream, there's a real good chance that it's best accomplished by forming a business about that dream. And so what I want to be is what Dale Carnegie was. And I really hope to step into his footsteps in some ways. But what he did was he became a salesman. He got out of school. He tried a number of things with mixed success. And he realized that if he sold things, he was good at it, even at a very young age. And so he was able to save up $500 and he moved to New York City. And then from there, he tried to be an actor. He went to acting school. He wanted to be an actor. Maybe he had some talent, I don't know, but he was having a hard time with it. He was struggling. He was running out of money. And this is the point that I want to talk about the most. He knew what he was good at, and that's public speaking. He was a great debater. He was vice president of his class in school. And he knew that most other people around him had a really hard time with public speaking. And so what he did was he wanted to start a school. Well, he didn't have the money for the space, so what did he do? He went to the great universities of the time in New York, and they turned him down. They said, we're not interested in such coursework. He went to the YMCA, and he convinced them to let him hold night courses in their location. This is the most important step. It's a widely overlooked detail about his life, but every good thing that came in his life came as a result of making that initial agreement. He found a space, a legitimate space, because YMCA was already known for having such classes. He found a space to hold a program that he had already developed, and it gave him a certain amount of credibility, and then he became popular very quickly. Before you knew it, he opened up his own facility. You see, most people, I think when they're planning a business, especially young people, about how expensive it is to make a business and how impossible it is to develop the business that you want to make or to make your dreams come true. They think they need to take responsibility for their own location or their own expensive equipment. or they think all of these expenses are going to happen when they don't necessarily need to happen. There's almost nothing you can start your business with that you can't find a way to get for a reduced price, or even free, or on the back of a promise about the future. If you say to the location holder, I will give you a piece of whatever I make from these students, they'll probably let you come and set up. Maybe not all of them. You might get some no's. But eventually you'll come to a place where they're just like, yeah, we got a lot of extra space. We will let you set up, and you can pay us from what you make. We will be partners. That's what you're hoping for. And that's really all I wanted to talk about with him. Aside from the fact that he went on to write 6 or dozens of books, he went on to be a worldwide leader, worldwide celebrity. He's considered a pioneer. He was a great man, hugely successful. He died wealthy. And, his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is obviously his biggest hit. Everyone has their widely biggest hit, I guess, unfortunately. You'd like all of your books to be equally successful. But it was on the bestseller list for like 10 years. So he spent a big piece of his, 40s and 50s, a national celebrity. So it all started with him developing the program he wanted to make to provide the service he wanted to provide. And then from there, it became about, where are we going to provide this service? What will the location be? In the modern day, he could have just set up online and just gotten going. But back then, he had to have a place. I don't know how he went about marketing his courses, but they were very popular. So he got, 12 people in the first class? They went out and told 3 people each. He had 30 people in his next class. Then he has 50 in his next, 100 in his next, 150 in his next, 300, 500, 600, 700, 1,000, so on. This is how you grow, because people tell each other. And so that's what we're hoping to do here. We've made a course about how to make your own business. It's on YouTube now. We're releasing a little bit at a time. It was our first effort to make some content. And from there, we're in Ukraine now. We're in Kyiv. And we're attempting to get involved with local organizations who can see the work that we've done online. And then we're hoping to hold courses through them, through their organization, so, to their base. And then, now we're opening this podcast. And it's the same effort to generate information. We want to educate. That is our first priority. If we can help anybody in the audience know the steps it takes to do things just a little bit better, avoid some mistakes, avoid some misprioritizations. That's right. We want to avoid that. We want to escape, help people escape from wasted years, from not understanding how to do what they want to do. Any 16-year-old who sees this, let me tell you, I'm 36. 16 to 26, you have 10 years to make a business. If you start now, you will have it. You will have it. Just start now and give it 10 years. At 26, you're going to feel almost as young as you do right now. Then from 26 to 36, you can make another business. If I can help a 16-year-old take steps to make his business properly, then I've saved him 20 years that I don't feel like I lost it, but I know I made a lot of mistakes. I know I made a lot of wrong turns. Some mentoring would have really benefited me, especially at key points, to give me the answers I need from somebody else who has similar experience. Now, I didn't have that, and I remember how confused or frustrated it made me certain times. And so I'm able to identify this problem. I'm sure other people are having the same problem, and I would like to set up. I think Dale Carnegie was in the same position. I just hope that I can demonstrate the same sort of results that he had. If I could do it not with personal skills, but with business skills. If I could help 1,000 or 2,000 people in my life start their own small business, it's more success than I could hope for. It's a way to be truly a benefit to the world around me, and maybe create some value too. That's what we all want. So I thank you for listening. I appreciate you for coming. This is our very first one. It's been a big deal. Now that I'm saying these closing remarks, it kind of shakes me up a little bit. I feel strange. But we're going to be right back here next week, and we're going to be stepping up our quality. And if you have any comments or anything you'd like to say, I would love to hear it, good or bad. I want to get better. Please subscribe and hit the bell. That way you'll be up on what we're doing. And thank you for coming.